Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am finishing off my Halloween builds for this year. I have made Jason from the Friday the 13th series. I have made Ghostface from Scream. I have made Hannibal Lecter from the Silence of the Lambs. And last week I made Michael Myers' escape mask from the Halloween series. And as I am a Texan, I thought it would be only fitting that I add the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to this list of builds. And instead of building a mask, which I've built 4 thus far, I thought, why not make a chainsaw? Maybe not a full chainsaw, maybe like a, hey, let's hang this on a wall chainsaw. And then maybe try and do another portrait painting, like I did the Pennywise butcher knife. Let's get to building. I drew up this template based off of a Poland chainsaw they used in the movie. I don't know how clear the pattern will be, but each of the parts makes up a layer stacked on top of each other. The highlighted areas on the edges are just to designate the reveals on each layer. Hopefully it'll make sense in the next clip, otherwise this template would be like 15 or 16 plus pages long with all these large parts individually drawn out. I used some dense 6mm foam for the blade and cut out 2 layers, then glued those together. Most of the body is 10mm HD foam, and I laser cut the links for the chains out of 4mm foam. Hopefully this clip shows you how I layered the pieces and how to use this template. I traced the whole pattern minus the handguard twice, then began cutting parts off of the pattern and tracing it again. As I work my way through it, I'm trying to figure out where each part reveals where. I don't do a lot of prototyping on my build, so most of the clips you see in my videos are me doing things for the first time, trying to figure it out as I go. Once I have all the parts traced out, I cut them out with a sharp hobby knife. When you're cutting out EVA foam, you want to work with a sharp blade. The foam dulls blades really fast, so you may want to invest in a knife sharpener, a sharpening stone, or get ready to go through a lot of blades or sanding. When I'm cutting, I try and make as clean a pull as I can through the material, going all the way through it. This will limit the cleanup later. All of the parts are made with the blade straight up and down. I might sand over bits once they are cut, but other than that, it's a pretty simple cut job. Here are my cut layers of the chainsaw body. I cut a wedge out of the very bottom layer so that the blade can slide in. Now I'm tracing the corresponding pieces onto the layers they will stack onto, so I know where to apply the contact cement for each area. When spreading the glue over large areas, I like to use a scrap piece of foam to squeegee it across. It goes a lot quicker and I have a much thinner even coat. Hopefully the parts numbered in this way make sense. 1 being the bottom layer and 7 being the top layer. I also went ahead and inserted a wire into the handle in this part so that it would be less wobbly. I just cut a channel in one piece and glued it in. I'm not extremely great at multitasking, and it may be hard to see here from the sped up clip, but I am working really fast to spread contact cement on the parts, sand bits where they need to be, and not working too fast ahead for my glue up. It came together relatively quickly, and with a little sanding, it should somewhat resemble a flattened chainsaw that'll sit about 3.5 inches off of the wall at its thickest point. If you're making one for yourself, you could easily skip this step. As a person who sells most of the things I make, I also have to think about packaging and transporting when I build. This chainsaw from end to end is about 36 inches long and could be 3 or 4 times more expensive than something half the length. So I'm going to attach the blade to the body with magnets. Initially, I thought I could get away with just 2 magnets and 2 washers, but I ended up having to put another one in the middle and 2 on the tips to get a good hold. I also went ahead and glued a flap of 2mm foam over the back to make a little more friction fit. I don't know if someone wants to hang it by one hole on the blade or if they want to use the holes that I drilled in the body, so I want to give hypothetical options for some unknown reason to myself. So you may notice that I left on some small detail bits off my build, the guard, the trigger, and the safety throttle, and a number of other little bits here and there. They will be in the final pattern, but I figured they would be easier to shape and cut individually than to try and carve them into the layers of foam. The choke, gas and bar oil caps, as well as the spark plug cords, all get shaped and added on after the body is built. Here's a quick sample of how I would add on some of those bits. I'm not going to show all of them because it would get very repetitive. The cutting chain is made up of some toothed sections with a chain link glued on both sides. I think I used a total of 72 links on mine. Maybe. I just super glue them in between the teeth. Chains can vary in cutting surface orientations, so I just kind of simplified it and tried to make it a recognizable but easy pattern. Once I had the full chain assembled, I glued it around the blade, making sure to not attach it to the body. To add some screw details, I put a sanding drum bit into my rotary tool and pulled the drum off a little bit proud of the top. I can then use the tip to plunge into the foam in different places to make recessed screws. For small screws, I used a cutting wheel bit with a cutting wheel removed in a similar fashion. I also used a wood burner to add slits on the housing and burn-in details on my screws. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while sanding or burning foam. You don't want to breathe in the particles or the fumes. Time for 2 coats of Plasti Dip. Then I lightly misted all of the surfaces with silver, brown, and black spray paint to make it aged. I am only going to keep little pieces of the silver showing, so I'm going to tape the chain up with painter's tape. Then I am going to use regular old toothpaste as a masking agent for scrapes and battle damage all over the blade and body. The various colors that I spray paint over the top of these parts will stick to the surface and be wiped away from the areas with the toothpaste. You could use masking tape, latex, or a number of other materials to achieve a similar effect. I like using toothpaste because it's easily accessible and it leaves your prop smelling minty fresh. Now it's time to pull off the masking tape and scrub off the toothpaste. And what better tool to remove toothpaste than a toothbrush? I bought one of those cheap battery powered ones that vibrates, and it makes a pretty easy, effortless job of removing the toothpaste from the surface. For all the black bits that I was too lazy to mask off and do a fourth layer of spraying, I'm just going to hand paint on with some acrylic paint. Looking at the reference images for this weapon in the movies, the games, the poster art, the fan art, and various other samples, it varies greatly in how people do this paint job. A yellow to a dirty, dingy yellow or brownish color to a light green or bright green. I went with the dirty yellow. Polens are typically like a brightish green color, but I think they painted them yellow for the movies to like avoid copyright stuff. I could be wrong, and I'm sure people will let me know in the comments below. Regardless, I like the contrast of black and yellow. Black and yellow, you know what it is. Everything I do, girl, I do it big. Now I'm going to try my hand again at doing another portrait painting. For this build, it only seems fitting to put Leatherface on the blade. You could also make a similar build, changing the color scheme and do some other villain, or maybe Ash from Evil Dead. I printed a reference image to the size that I wanted it to be on the blade, cut it out, traced out the silhouette, and a couple of other key features in the picture, then made my marks visible with a Sharpie. Once I had the image down, I used some white and black acrylic paint, some paintbrushes, and the tips of my fingers to lay out the portrait. I don't typically get to paint a lot of portraits or characters in my prop builds, but I did enjoy a lot of it when I was in college. I follow several artists on social media and here on YouTube. I have mentioned some of them from time to time and wanted to shout out another friend of mine, Shane Swearengin, aka Shane Scare Studios. He's an amazingly talented painter who does a lot of black and white portraits on various objects, canvases, and the like. I'll put links to his stuff down in the description below. Please go check out his work, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. I'm constantly inspired by what he puts out on his posts. His wife is also a pretty talented crafter herself, and you can find them in various conventions and craft shows in and around Florida. Now that my portrait is done, it wouldn't be a proper Texas Chainsaw Massacre chainsaw without at least a little blood. Mix some 5-minute epoxy with a little red acrylic paint and a dab of black to make a permanently wet blood effect. I know I use this technique a lot, but it really does make the props look much more legit. You have to work quickly as this stuff sets up really quick. Slap it on and let it dry. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I think it turned out pretty cool. Definitely something that hopefully pays proper homage to the movie. I really like that it is separable so that if I was to sell it or ship it somewhere, it would easily be shipped in a much smaller package than the like 36 inches long that it is attached together. But yeah, maybe you will try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to creepily put something on a wall that helps cut trees and people, I guess. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some. Yay! And inevitably they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them much props. It is about to storm outside, so I'm sure I'll need this here in a little bit. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.